Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about the politics of UFC 249. All right, so what I'm talking about exactly is the 249 event, which happened specifically on May 9th, 2020, for the Universal Fighting Championship. All right, so I'm really fascinated by the UFC. I actually um, it's a kind of a zoo situation, right? Like, uh, one of my favorite animals is the capybara. It is a mouse that is as big as a dog. It's crazy, right? And when I go to the zoo, any zoo, my first question is, y'all got a capybara? And I look at the capybara, and I'm like, hey, where's the capybaras? And I go look at the capybara, right? And it's not that I really like capybaras, but they just absolutely fascinate me. And every time I see them, I learn something new. And my relationship with the UFC is a lot like my relationships with capybaras. I'm just absolutely fascinated by them. It's not like it's just, it's not even the thing. It's just the spectacle of it, and I'm just fascinated about everything that surrounds it. And my fascination with it has been fully rewarded. I learned yesterday that the UFC has just bought their own island where they can have fights, right? And they're going to call it Fight Island so that they can have their fights and they don't have to worry about some nuisance government giving them laws about fighting, right? It's absolutely fascinating, right? So I watched this event, and there are a lot of analogies to politics. So let's dig into them, all right? So first of all, I want to just go through the card. There were 5 fights, and I'll tell you the different fights and where they attach to American politics and the red, blue, and white struggle we have in American politics. So, of course, red, Republicans, blue, Democrats, and the white party, the one in the middle, is the party of honesty and logic. And everyone in the white party, which is a virtual party, is made up of Democrats and Republicans who abandon their own party for a minute, an hour, a year, or a decade because they believe that their own party has abandoned honesty and logic. And I think we all find ourselves on the white party a lot, right? So you have the American flag, you have red, white, and blue, right? You have red, the Republicans, white, the party of honesty and logic, when the Republicans and the Democrats abandon honesty and logic, right? We all join the white party at some point or another, and then the blues, the Democrats, right? So let's talk about the UFC 249 in the perspective of American politics. So the first fight on the card was Greg Hardy versus Jorgen De Castro. Greg Hardy is an NFL player, so he was a National Football League player, and now he's in the UFC. And this fight was the lowest on the card, and it was really just it was not a great fight. These were and honestly, you kind of got the idea that UFC was really hoping Greg Hardy could come up, and the reason why is they want a celebrity attached to their brand, right? UFC is very hard to sell. The NFL is the absolute model for sports across the world. I hear you. I know we got some international listeners. Soccer, nobody cares about soccer, man. Like, yeah, I know a billion people watch it. Nil nil, a common turnout, like scores of 1-2. Flopping, it is a horrible sport. Forget it. Like, it's not a real thing. American football. You want a real sport? That is a real sport. And it is the gold standard of the world, right? Like, and I know there's quite a few people who love soccer, but flopping's enough to just turn that whole, like, if, how can a billion people watch a sport that allows flopping? It's absurd. I don't get it, right? So American gridiron football, that is the gold standard, right? And they have made just absolutely massive success and attached that success to one country, right? American gridiron football only exists in one place in the world, right? And the whole world watches it, right? So that is the gold standard. And I think what UFC is trying to do is they are really trying to get to that NFL American gridiron football standard. They want people to sit down in the tens, hundreds of millions to watch these events. It's a hard sell because of what you're dealing with. These are brutal beatdowns, just brutal beatdowns. Now, I will say this: I have a very new respect for UFC's um, safeties that they put around this. Right. So one, the sport is insanely dangerous when it is in the ring. Right. But everything around it is wrapped with a lot of safety. So for one, when these fighters come out, if they have a knockout, they can't fight for 3 to 6 months. They can't even train, right? That is way beyond anything you would see in almost any other sport, right? So they really wrap these fighters in safety outside the ring, even though the danger inside the ring is, whoa, just incredible. The other thing I learned is that these fighters really only fight once or twice a year, right? So that's really different. Whereas in football, you have athletes going out 16 times a year, maybe as much as 20 times a year, right? So the danger, so it really is fascinating just how this all maps out, right? Now, what's this got to do with politics? For one, trust and believe, politics is a blood sport. Holy cows, man! So that's one of the reasons why I absolutely love red, white, and blue politics, American politics. It is daggers out, baby. Like from the gate, people are just trying to wreck each other, and it's very much like the UFC, right? So, of course, yes, American politics is a figurative blood sport. But honestly, I think honestly, seeing some of the things that happened in the 2020 primaries, it was kinder seeing what happened in these matches in the UFC. What was done to Andrew Yang, right? Like you knock down every single obstacle, and you're doing great for the party, and you are changing the conversation, and you have trouble making the next debate. You reach out to the party and you say, "Hey, I've given you six debates now. Can you help me out? Can you help people of color out who are struggling to get into this?" And they're like, "No, you can go take a long walk off a short pier." Oh, but then there's a billionaire who needs help with the fact that he can't make the debates because he doesn't have any donors. Oh, it's just switched into New York second, right? That's cold blooded. That is like an upper. I did not see an uppercut land that hard in any of the UFC fights yesterday. That is just cold blooded, right? So I'll tell you right now, even though American sports is a figurative blood sport, it's a lot nastier than what you see in the UFC. Just cold, right? And there's more on the line. There's just more on the line in American. The other thing that I'm realizing too is UFC has three types of fighters. They have strikers, people who punch, kick, right? They have wrestlers, people who will take somebody down, put them on the ground, and then kind of like choke them into submission and like just kind of grind them into submission on the ground, right? And then last, they have devastators. These are people who can knock a person out with one punch, one blow, right? And once you see these archetypes within the UFC, it really opens up the door to watch for these archetypes in American politics. And I can tell them to you right now, right? So one, Joe Biden, that dude is a wrestler, right? He takes people to the mat and then just grinds them into submission, right? He doesn't really engage in any type of you hit, I hit, right? And the way he does it is he's really using like essentially the establishment is the floor, and he's just grinding other opponents into the floor, right? And he's extremely good at it. He uses, he has a relationship with the floor. He has a relationship with the establishment, and he just grinds people into it, right? Striker absolutely is Andrew Yang. Andrew Yang, kick, punch, political punch, political kick, able to move, tons of maneuverability, fast, agile, really a great political striker. Who is the devastator? Now, first of all, in red, white, blue American politics, there are lots of wrestlers. There are lots of strikers. There have been for centuries. We just saw the first devastator in American politics. The devastator right now in American politics, trust and believe, it's Donald Trump. He's the first American political devastator. Right? Now you're like, wait, how did he take people down in a single punch? Nicknames, nicknames, nicknames. Right? He just absolutely wrecked 16 foes in 2016 to become president, and he has wrecked foe after foe after foe after foe right now. Right? Nancy Pelosi politically knocked her out. She swung at him with an impeachment, block, uppercut, boom, done. Have you heard Nancy Pelosi's name said with respect since that debacle? I don't think so. Right? And just think of all the people he has just sidestepped and just dropped a political jab right to the nose and just taken out. And the list is incredibly long, right? And the reality is his ability to tag somebody with a moniker is absolutely devastating, and he is the first political devastator. Okay, all right. So let's talk through these cards. So let's go back to it. Greg Hardy versus Jorgen De Castro. It's a real nonsense fight. It was not good. It was not pretty. It was bad. And it almost seemed like Jorgen De Castro, like the UFC was hoping that Greg Hardy could do a good job so that they could have a celebrity attached to their brand. And that's what happened. He won by decision. Yeah, okay. Take a look at that, and you tell me if Greg Hardy looks like a winner. It was not good. But that's very much like American politics. I am amazed that celebrities really didn't show up. Well, actually, celebrities did show up. Donald Trump is in there right now. He's a celebrity, right? I am convinced that America probably will never have a politician president again. It's going to be celebrities from here on out. And Donald Trump, I am highly predicting he is going to win in 2020 unless Andrew Yang unsuspends, which is about a 1% chance right now. So celebrities going to take it. That's where we're at. Okay. The next card was Jeremy Stephens, Calvin Kattar. It was like fourth on the card. There was a little bit of action. It was a fight that really didn't have much to it. Calvin Kattar won, but there really weren't any links there. Let's talk about this next one. Francis Ngannou versus Jairzinho Rozenstruik. Okay, this was a Devastator versus Devastator match. It was incredible. It lasted 20 seconds. Francis Ngannou, who is from Cameroon, absolutely destroyed Jairzinho. It was a mess, right? Now, one thing that really, really blew me away was I'm not a sports person. Okay, so why did I watch this UFC event? Well, the reason why I watched this UFC event is this. There's so many things for me to be interested in, right? The technology of how they do this, how they're selling this product, and then also just competition. I love politics because I like things that have a clear winner and loser, right? Art class is a good example, right? When you go into art class and you do a drawing and you're going to get an A, B, or C, who knows what that's for? Because it's so subjective, right? But you go to math class, you're going to fail or succeed if your answer is right or wrong, right? And that's what I love about politics. Winner, loser, right? And I love this part too where everybody can yickety yickety yak yak yak, but when the winner's decided, all the yik yak stops, right? And the winner wins and the loser lose. It's great. That's one of the things I really like about the UFC thing. It is absolutely brutal. I have never seen a sport like this. It's so brutal. But one of the things one of the things you have to endure when you watch sports is you have to listen to people talk, right? And this is the worst because one, athletes aren't the greatest speakers most of the time anyway, not because they're not smart, but because they've dedicated all their time and energy to becoming physical specimens, right? So they don't really leave a whole lot of time for reading and writing and getting a big vocabulary and for contemplative thought, right? So, and you could see this in these interviews. These UFC interviews were even worse, right? Because you got these people who have not dedicated themselves to clear communication, and now they're literally been punched and they've been punching and punched for for 20 seconds to 25 minutes, and when they come out, these interviews are just ugh, right? But guess who was doing the interviews? Joe Rogan, the guy who talked to Andrew Yang, right? And also, get this, the guy that Joe Biden refuses to talk to, because Joe Rogan would in 10 minutes show Joe Biden to be an absolute fool. Joe Biden does not deserve to be our president because he doesn't take enemy territory interviews. He's too weak to go into an interview that hasn't been laid down with a soft memory foam mattress for him, and where every question is prepared, and because you can't put him on the spot, he don't think that quick anymore. It's just like you can't, right? So and that's why he doesn't do long form interviews, and that's why he doesn't do enemy territory interviews. But guess what? The job of U.S. president is hard, right? But right here was a political commentator doing the interviews for UFC. And Francis Ngannou, who destroyed his opponent in 20 seconds, sounded like an English professor, right? Now, one of the reasons why was he only fought for 20 seconds, right? So there you go, right? But the reality is he won the communication prize of the night, right? And every American politician should listen to Francis Ngannou's eloquent speech after he beat the living, it was bad, out of Jarzino. It was incredible, all right? So that was a great, great fight. I also want to say that was a brutal fight, right? Okay, so let me wrap this up. Let me start to give you a little bit of perspective here, right? The Republicans are people who have terrible goals and all the ability to achieve them. And Democrats are people who have wonderful goals and virtually no ability to achieve them, right? So, and what you really need to pay attention with, right, is how your group fights, right? And right now, the Blues, they need to learn to politically fight because they are terrible at it. Just terrible. First, they pick the wrong fighter, right? Then they have no ability to train that fighter. And they have no ability to, and the people they choose to support that fighter are the absolute worst, right? Like, except for, like, they're some of the worst. They're just terrible. So the fighter we have in the corner for us, Joe Biden, terrible fighter, terrible team, terrible support. Well, I'll tell you right now, ain't nobody excited for voting for Joe Biden, right? But when you look at the way these fighters prepare, I really think and that's where this connects. So the Blues, the Democrats, the entire UFC is probably almost all red fans, right? And the Democrats need to start watching UFC and understanding it. The Democrat blue tacticians and strategists. It's really, really important because if they're ever going to understand how to win Trump voters, they got to see where the Trump voters is. And I'll tell you right now, it's a lot more likely that that Republican voters are watching UFC rather than Emma, the last Pride and Prejudice film. You got to know where the people you need to get votes from are, right? The Blues are already locked. They're gonna whatever, right? So that's truly important. Next match was Henry Cejudo versus Dominic Cruz. Henry Cejudo had absolute control of the entire fight. Absolutely destroyed Dominic Cruz, and you could see from the gate that he knew what he was there to do, and that's one of my biggest fears with Joe Biden. He does not know what he's there to stop Donald Trump. He's not there because he wants to be president. Motivation matters. Okay. Last was Tony Ferguson versus Justin Gaethje. This was the main card, and there was an absolute shocking upset. And Justin Gaethje tore Tony Ferguson up. Justin Gaethje was the underdog. Okay, and I really hope that Justin Gaethje is a predictive event showing what could happen if Andrew Yang unsuspends and goes in, because he could definitely do that to Tony Ferguson. He could definitely. So Andrew Yang could really, I think he could tear Biden apart before the convention if he just unsuspends. I'm really hoping Andrew Yang unsuspends. It was the UFC fight was it was really an incredible event. It was also really exciting to see this is the pattern for how sports should emerge again, very in our current 316 times. That is how I map the politics, the red, white, and blue politics of America to the UFC 249 event. Did you see it? Do you think my mappings are correct? Who do you think are political strikers, wrestlers, and devastators? Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.